Welcome to In Conversation with Steve Iverson. Our guest today is Melissa Interess, Director of the Town Department of Human Services here in Lexington. We'll be talking with Melissa about the services provided by that department and also about how the coronavirus emergency has affected what the department focuses on. So thank you for coming on today, Melissa.
Thank you, Steve.
Maybe we could start by you telling us a little bit about what your department usually does.
Sure. Our department is made up of 4 divisions. So we have senior services, we have youth and family services, we have veteran services, and we also serve the town's transportation out of our department. So typically what we're really doing for folks, for all residents across the lifespan, is providing resources, referrals, lots and lots of programming, especially in the 60 plus population. Emotional support, connection to longer term resources and needs, financial assistance, short-term case management, and then any other things that may come up along the way. We have, a myriad of questions we get day to day that are brand new to us. So trying to help folks navigate those as well.
And out of the things that you mentioned, are there 1 or 2 items that take most of your time or that you see more often than the others?
Definitely information and referral is a big need for folks in town. Providing them with resources, providing them with information about what they might be eligible for, as well as the programming that we provide around topics that are educational, that are more supportive, that are artistic or musical in nature. Those are a lot of the programming needs that we offer. And then probably after that would be individual support for residents coming in, having, specific problems or situations that they're trying to work through, whether it be financial, whether it be family related, whether it be caregiving, whether it be emotional support, those sorts of things.
Okay. And how about your own background? What did you do prior to the position you have now?
I have a number of years in providing services to folks who are aging and or have disabilities in the community. So managing community-based programs that are typically Medicaid funded. Those are the primary things that I've had in my recent background. And that's been a number of years that I've provided those types of services, really managing those types of services for folks. So I have a pretty strong handle on caregiving issues, on, subsidy programs that may be available to folks in the community that people may not be aware of. And then just, general human service stuff that creeps up.
In particular, you are a social worker, I believe?
I am, yep. I'm an LICSW, which is a licensed independent clinical social worker. Mm-hmm. And I maintain that licensure even though I don't practice independently right now.
Mm-hmm. And do you have people working for you, with you in the department as well?
Yep. Our department's made up of probably about a dozen folks. Not everyone is full-time. We have 3 other social workers on staff who provide clinical and social work services to residents. And then we have a lot of programming and administrative support staff as well who help us keep running day to day.
Sure. And so now we have an enormous coronavirus emergency, including stay-at-home recommendations. Schools are closed. How has this changed what you do?
It's changed dramatically. I mean, we've certainly had to figure out how we work remotely. So all of our staff, for the most part, are working from home right now, and sort out, the technical issues related to that, as well as how we maintain contact with folks in the community who are calling in. We've found lots of good workarounds for that. We're doing a lot by email. We're doing Zoom calls face to face with folks who are able to do that. We're on the phone a lot, but we're also seeing a real shift in the types of questions that are coming in. We anticipated a lot of financial assistance need during this time, and we were right. Those requests are starting to come in more and more rapidly. We were fortunate enough to receive a large donation from Takeda Pharmaceuticals, who maintains an office in town.
$250,000.
Yep, 250,000, specifically earmarked for folks who are in need during this particular time. So really related to the pandemic, and folks who may have been laid off, not been able to work anymore because kids are home, who aren't comfortable or can't go out because they have underlying conditions, so they've had to voluntarily stop working, that sort of thing. So that's probably the vast majority of what we continue to do day to day, but we're also looking at how we continue to provide some programming virtually, especially supportive programming. That's something that's really kind of come to the top of the list in terms of priorities, like caregiver support groups that we've been able to move to online formats and have been very well received, as well as some art therapy type support that we've offered that's been popular. So really just trying to figure out how we shift to operate in this new normal and be able to continue to reach especially the isolated and at-risk folks in the community, and keep up, with those financial needs that are coming in.
The isolation in particular is very difficult for everyone, but especially for people who lived alone before this started. Can you give us an example of one of these groups that you mentioned, and what kind of people might participate, and how it's delivered, and what actually happens?
In terms of the support group?
Yeah, exactly.
So we were already running some support groups for caregivers, so specifically folks who are caring for someone who has dementia or Alzheimer's, and also a general caregiver support group for folks who might be caring for someone not with a dementia or Alzheimer's, but with maybe a significant, terminal or chronic condition. So we've been able to move some of those groups we're using Zoom as a platform. And, it was a little bit of a slow start, I think, because folks were not necessarily thinking that those were going to be ways that they could really feel supported. But a lot of people tried it. And in fact, we got some participants come back to the virtual format who hadn't been able to go to the in-person groups over a number of weeks or months because they couldn't leave the house. So in some ways, this is reaching folks who we lost touch with because they weren't coming to the face-to-face groups. And some of the groups are requesting more frequency with these groups instead of the once a month that we used to offer before, because they're getting so much out of the more frequent contact. So that's one way that we've been trying to stay in contact with some of the folks who are more isolated.
There's been some talk about how a lot of the changes that we're seeing now some of them might continue even after the coronavirus emergency has attenuated a bit, including using online services. I hear people talking about how they're just going to continue to do a lot of that because it works well and it's easier than going someplace often. Do you think that might be true for you as well?
I think we certainly will use it more, especially as we start to reopen our services. It's not going to be 100% open. So I think that we'll probably need to have some sort of a graduated way that we start to reopen our services. And in tandem with that, I think we will continue to do some of the online things that we've been doing that have seemed to be successful and popular during this time. Also, I think we're seeing in terms of staffing just that there are ways that we can work and be effective remotely that we didn't really consider in a serious way before. And I think just across town in general, not just our department, we may be starting to look a little bit more at flexibility around folks working. Certainly a lot of our positions are very customer facing. So if it's folks who are coming into our building, we need staff available to be able to see them and to serve them. So that's certainly not going to go away, but it seems like there could be a little bit more flexibility here and there because now we've proven that we can do a lot of this work at home. So
Where are you located in town?
our department is located at the community center on Merritt Road, on that same property as the museum, the Scottish Rite Museum.
The big, beautiful new community center that's a few
Yes.
years old now. Yeah.
Yes, we're very fortunate to have that as our backdrop for working day to day.
I've also been reading about how the coronavirus emergency has increased problems with mental health. And I've even seen some talk about how either it already has or it may increase the degree of domestic violence, people staying at home who at one time could go out and get some time away from each other. Have you seen much of a change in those things?
We have anecdotally through the police department, we've certainly heard about upticks in those particular cases. More intensity of some of the calls that they're getting, especially around mental health, and we expect that to continue. We have posted some resources related to both mental health and domestic violence online on our town website, but also want to make sure that folks know that we're available and we continue to be available, even as a little bit more of an immediate call to figure out what might be the best course for them, the best resource for them, what their options may be. The town subscribes to a mental health referral service called William James Interface, which is, that information is also available on our website, but that's a service that matches folks with a couple of therapists that may be taking new referrals at that time, to help them sort of navigate that system of trying to find a therapist, especially with any of the insurance limitations that might be out there as well. They are still operating. A lot of the therapists right now are obviously doing telemedicine, telehealth type visits, and I know that's hard for people, especially in initial visits, but those are all still options for folks, and a lot of health insurances have shifted to be allowing those types of visits to happen during this pandemic. But we have social workers on staff as well, so are always available to be a short-term resource for folks to talk through a situation, to get connected to more ongoing resources, whatever it may be. So I can't stress enough that we're available, and people should always call us, especially if they don't really know where to go or what to do, because we're always willing to try to help people figure those things out and navigate situations.
So your own staff might actually provide some short-term crisis
Yep,
intervention or supportive
yep,
counseling with
yep,
eventually a
absolutely.
referral somewhere.
Yep, absolutely.
Mhm. A lot of people are out of work right now. Are you seeing more requests for financial assistance too?
Yes, yeah, for sure. We certainly have a steady stream of those that come throughout the year, but um, we've probably seen, upwards of 20 requests in the last 3 to 4 weeks, um, which is actually probably a little bit lower than I expected, but they continue to come in. Um, and folks are just really struggling because they can't work. Unemployment may have been approved, but obviously it may not be for what they were making before, or they may not be eligible for unemployment based on whatever their particular circumstances are. So um, we triage those and we then seek approval for funding through a process that we have set up. And then once approved, we have our finance treasurer cut checks for the specific payees, so the specific entities that are needing payment. Um, so we have a good process in place that's always been in place, but we're definitely seeing a lot more of that need.
And how does the big donation from Takeda Pharmaceuticals connect with that? Are you distributing some of those funds through your own
Yes.
agency? Oh, I see.
Yep. Yep. So we are sort of the assessor of the requests that come in. And then we send the request to town manager or his designee to just review it. And we do that confidentially. So we don't provide any identifying information to once it goes outside of our department. So it's really important for folks to know that if they come in, their identity remains confidential within our own department. Once outside of our department, all of the identifying information is stripped away from those requests, so that even within other town departments, they're not necessarily seeing who the request is coming from, just that it's a family in need, so to speak. And then those requests, if they're related to the coronavirus situation, those requests are coming from that Takeda donation that we have available to us.
It's a significant gift. It must be doing a lot of good.
Yes, it is, and we're so appreciative, so
Mm,
appreciative of that.
mm. And the schools are closed. That also must affect your department and what people need and what people are looking for and so on. What has your experience been there?
Yeah, the schools have been great because they continue to support their students in whatever way they can. They're providing both breakfast and lunches to students who were on free and reduced lunches before. So that's something they've made available in regards to food insecurity for families.
The schools are still providing that, you said?
Yep, yep. The
And how is
schools
that
are
done?
providing that. So my understanding is that the catering that operates out of the schools are making those meals, and they're sort of doing a drive-through where the person pulls up and the meals are placed in the back of the car or in the trunk in some way. I haven't seen it in operation, but that's my understanding is how that's working.
Mhm.
I don't know if it's every day that families come pick up or if it's a week's worth. I'm not actually sure how that particular piece is working. But that's been really good. And if families aren't able to get to the school, there are also volunteers available who are actually doing some of that meal delivery out to families. Um, I think food insecurity has been one of the other big things that we're seeing out of this pandemic. So the food pantry has seen quite an uptick in need. And they continue to post week to week what their specific needs are in regards to food items, but they're just in general seeing more families coming through and more residents coming through who need that service.
And remind us who sponsors the food pantry and where it's located.
So the food pantry is operated out of the Church of Our Redeemer on, I think it's Merriam Street. It's called the Lexington Interfaith Food Pantry. So I can't actually speak that much to the history of it, but it is operated out of that church. And they've made a lot of adjustments to how they operate as well. So folks can pre-order, and it will get bagged up by a volunteer who is specifically working for the food pantry and brought out to vehicles or brought out to individuals. There's also delivery options available. So they've made a lot of really great flexible adjustments based on the ongoing situation to try to keep everyone as safe as possible and to be able to continue to operate, which has been really great. As well, there's a group called Neighbor Brigade in town who has been providing a lot of volunteer services around grocery shopping, grocery delivery, picking up prescriptions or other types of errands that are essential for folks who can't get out or feel unsafe going out. So those resources have been hugely supportive in town. And I meet with a group of community resources once a week to kind of keep on top of what the current needs are, what's going on, what they're seeing with the folks who are accessing their services. So it's been a really nice collaboration.
Are there other groups you'd like to mention besides Neighbor Brigade in that category?
Yeah, we have some groups who are, providing masks or making masks. I know that there was some feature in the Colonial Times about some of the mask making, as well as a place that you could request one of the handmade masks. But there are a couple of cultural groups in town as well who are providing some of the surgical masks to folks who may need them. Not the N95, but just the more basic masks. All that information is on our website at the Lex Help page. So if people need masks, they can go through a request form through one of those groups to get masks, as well as I believe the mask making information will be going up on our website in the next day or so. And that was all the information that was in the Colonial Times about, if people want to sew and donate some time and some resources to making masks, then there are options for that as well.
Okay, great. I believe that certain institutions, nursing homes, long-term care facilities have been particularly hard hit by this infection because it can spread so quickly. Is that correct? And is there any issue in town where we're seeing that?
I can't speak to the specific locations and sort of where the cases are that we currently have in town. I do know that in general, nursing homes, assisted livings have been a bit harder hit because they're in more congregate living environments. So it's a little bit easier for the spread to happen. And I do know that there may be, some restrictions in different facilities around visiting, which have probably been in place for some time to try to reduce any incoming risk for residents. But I can't speak specifically to the facilities in Lexington in terms of concentration and where the positive cases are happening. I'm not actually sure. Mm-hmm. We hear about total numbers, but we don't know, we don't know more than that in terms of where those cases are.
And what has been your source of information about what's happening with the infection? Do you get that from the state mostly? where do you get that information from generally? Where
Yep.
do you stay up to date?
Our health department has been really great at keeping us updated in terms of local case numbers, but they're in daily contact with the State Department of Public Health. And then we also have other folks who are on calls with the Lieutenant Governor's office, weekly with other agencies and entities across the state, FEMA, MEMA. So we, as a senior management group, we stay on top of a lot of that information by way of a phone call in the morning 3 times a week that we have, and we kind of review anything that's new that's come out. We review case numbers, and our health department has been incredible in terms of sort of staying on top of that and keeping us really up to date on, the latest and the newest information that's out there.
I would imagine that you have ongoing, very close ties to the health department in town.
Yeah. Yep, for sure.
And the police department as well, you mentioned. We spoke about perhaps a higher incidence of domestic abuse, or the possibility of that. And do you have people in particular who you work with over at the police department when those things happen?
We do. We work closely. I work closely with the chief of police, Mark Core, as well as there are some family services detectives there that we work with. And they're folks who are sort of, letting us know that there might be a concern or someone at risk in the community. Oftentimes, pre-pandemic, we would go do joint home visits together if it was someone that they thought could use human services support. And likewise, in the opposite direction, if we think that there might be something bubbling that the police may get called in on, we try to make sure that they have an awareness of a little bit of what's going on with some of those situations if we're able to share that information with them. We operate under the same umbrella, and we're really mindful of confidentiality. So we will share information more on a need-to-know basis with even with folks in another town department, police, fire, health, and aren't just freely sharing information on any case that comes in. So and similarly in the reverse. So we're really careful about that, but we're really collaborative in terms of how we may work on specific cases who are at risk in the community.
Okay. Well, we just have a few minutes left, but is there anything else we haven't mentioned that you would like to share with people who might be watching? Anything you'd like them to know that perhaps they don't know now that we haven't touched on?
Yeah, we are working hard to try to reach folks who are feeling isolated right now. So one thing that we're starting to kick off in our department is sort of a voluntary friendly check-in program where people who are feeling like they might benefit from having a phone call from one of our staff with some regularity can call into our department and sign up for that. Our main phone number is 781-698-4840. So they can call in and leave their name and phone number if they're interested in that program. We're also trying to get mailings out to folks on somewhat of a regular basis. We used to have a newsletter that went out every other month, but right now we haven't been able to really do that. So we're trying to get folks engaged online as much as possible as well to voluntarily sign up for some of our electronic communication so that we can keep people sort of in the loop on what's going on. But really just looking at the isolation piece is something we're thinking about, especially now that this may go on for a bit longer. So, and if you know of someone that lives nearby that you're concerned about, we also have postcards online that folks can print at home, or we have postcards available at the community center, the library, the public services building, and the town office building that just say, hi, neighbor, I'm available to help you. This is my name, this is my phone number, and this is what I can help you with. And these are things that neighbors could put in other neighbors' mailboxes if they've never really made a connection with them, just to let them know they're available to assist with whatever needs may be out there. So we're trying to find all these different ways to stay in touch with people, get in touch with people who are isolated, and do it in the different modes that people may use. Not everybody's online, but trying to get that information out as much as possible has been, our focus at the moment.
And, some people really aren't online. So a postcard that you can print out and fill out and put in someone's mailbox could be a really wonderful tool
Yep,
to
exactly.
communicate with someone. We like to assume that everyone's online now, but it's not really true. Most people are.
Right.
Yeah.
Right, most people are.
Yeah.
With obvious ranges of ability within that. So some people might just have email, and some people might be able to go onto our website and find that information, but abilities and knowledge about how to find information is all over the map. So we're just trying to hit all the different ways that we might be able to reach people.
Okay. Well, I'd like to thank you for coming on, Melissa. I've learned a lot about what you do and what you're working with now and what you're up against. And I'm sure this will be very helpful to a lot of people.
Thank you. I appreciate the time.
No, you bet. You've been watching In Conversation. Thanks for watching.